Only alongside Nick Zararis, we scream about the Rangers so that you don't have to. This is episode 77 live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and we are available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Nick, they beat the Jets, they beat the Hurricanes, and then they blew a 3-goal lead and lost in a shootout to the Minnesota Wild. The problem is Adam Fox is on LTIR, and Chytil is out with what sounds like another concussion. Hang on to your seat.
Saturday night was a classic letdown spot. I was thinking about this the other day because I was talking with my friends who I met up with Saturday night after the Ranger game ended, and they go, "Well, how'd they lose?" And I go, "They played a really emotional game Thursday night against the team that's in their division that they have animosity with, that they pulled one out of that they probably didn't deserve to beat Carolina, but they did. They were riding high. They were feeling really good about themselves. They went into the game Saturday night, came out rolling, got out to a big lead early." Classic letdown spot. It happens. It's a long season. They're human. They have emotions, these feelings, they ebb and flow up and down. And really, the key to a good season is being able to manage those highs and lows, is never getting too high, never getting too low. And that was a hallmark of the Gerard Gallant Rangers teams, where they would rattle off 3 wins in a row and they would show up like they were the 1979 Soviet hockey team, expecting the other team doesn't want to play us. They're going to lose no matter what we do. And then they would lose. And then if they played well the next game, they would win and then the losing streak. Or they would lose 2 in a row and it felt like the sky was falling because they were outchanced 75-34 in 50 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time. And they only lost 3-2 because they got 2 power play goals. But other than those 2 power play goals, it felt like nothing happened during the game. As for right now, it is a matter of survival. Right now, you got to adjust your expectations a little bit, and we're going to dive into exactly why in regards to the Fox injury in particular. But as far as Chytil, real quick, there's no idea of when they could even begin to assume he could possibly return. So more than likely, we are getting a return of Barclay Goodrow to center, and we are going to see one of him or Bonino centering that third line. At practice this morning, it was Bonino with Cooley and Kakko, which that's something else we can talk about. But Chytil is probably out longer just because there's no idea on a timetable. But without Adam Fox, you are really going to have to adjust your expectations for what this team looks like on a night-to-night basis.
I tweeted this after the Wild game, but the Rangers could feasibly pay this man $1 billion a year, and he'd still be underpaid. That's how valuable he is to this team, both defensively, offensively, in transition. The things that he does on the ice, there's nobody on the Rangers especially, but there's not a whole lot of people on planet Earth that can mimic the kinds of things that Adam Fox does on a game-to-game basis and the things that he provides on a game-to-game basis for the Rangers. It's, the highlight reel plays aside, it's the little things. It's the absolute so much patience with the puck that I've never seen out of a defenseman, maybe ever. Like, this man he has 3 people barreling towards him, and he just kind of sidesteps with like the most nonchalant move on the planet, and then he just makes this highlight reel pass and it's in the back of the net. Like, these are things that nobody on this team can replicate no matter how much they try. And, but you can do it in your garage, but try doing it again, in the NHL level. It's going to be impossible to find somebody that can replace Adam Fox. It's just a matter of, can the Rangers hang on long enough so that they can just hold on and wait until Adam Fox comes back. Hopefully he comes back. I think it's like 3-4 weeks is the timetable right now. They have a bye, which is great, which like works out really well for the Rangers. Like, I can't believe it's really funny how the universe works a lot of time. Like, the Rangers have three games this week, and then they're off for 5 days. It's for what it's worth. Obviously you never want these injuries to happen, but the timing wise, it could have been a lot worse. Yeah, the Rangers come back and they play a bunch of games after that, but they don't have a lot of games here coming up the next couple of weeks, which should give Adam Fox a little bit more of a leeway to get back to full strength here. So that's a concern. Hopefully the Rangers just kind of hang on for dear life. With Filip, he's had a number of concussion injuries in his career so far. It's just worrying. Forget Filipino the hockey player. It's worrying for Filipino as a person. You can only rack your brain. You can only have so many brain injuries before it starts to really become a problem. and he's had a number of them, and he's hasn't been in the league for a million. Like, he's not 39 hanging on for dear life. Like, this is somebody still in his early 20s that still has a long career ahead of him if he stays healthy. But this is just scary for Filipino, and hopefully he comes back soon. You are muted, sir.
It's really concerning. Arthur says 4 diagnosed concussions, which means more than likely you're talking about more than that, because a lot of the time these guys don't even realize they've been concussed. And when you, the thing that's frustrating about it was, for all of the bemoaning about the lack of counting stats, you saw it there. There's the first 5 to 8 games from Chytil here. You saw the flashes. You saw, okay, this guy's good enough to be the 2C. That allows Trocheck to be the 3C, and it gives the lineup a little more dynamic ability throughout. It puts Trocheck in a position where he's going to be able to play more successfully. And now we're going to have to kind of piece it together. And there will be complaints about, well, why aren't they trying this? Why aren't they trying that? Right now, it is about triage. They need to survive until they get Fox back. And then we can start worrying about, well, what are they going to do at 3C? Are they going to LTIR him? And part of the reason it feels bad, and part of the reason this all sucks, is got off to a great rip out of the gate. 8-2-1, really strong start out of the gate. Good vibes, banked points early, got some breathing room for situations like this. That's the good thing about them coming out of the gate so hot, and something we talked about before the season started. Coming into the season with a good start gives you a margin for error. When you run into issues is where you come out of the gate cold, or you hit a lull in December or January, and you got to climb out of that hole. That's not to say the Rangers can, go and botch this lead that they have, this standings points cushion. That wouldn't be a good thing, but they have a little bit of breathing room. The schedule isn't that dense, as you said. They only have 3 games this week, and then they have a full week off for whatever reason. I have no idea why the NHL has a week built off in the middle of November, but it works to the Rangers' benefit. And as far as what the team looks like without these guys, any team missing its number 1 defenseman is going to be worse. Any team missing one of the 3 best defensemen in the entire world is going to be a lot worse. You have to bake that into your expectations. Yeah, they didn't look great against Minnesota after they got the 3-goal lead. That's to be expected. They got a big lead. Their best defenseman, who, would be out there defending that lead, was not in the game. It wasn't a great situation. Something we'll talk about, I'm sure, later on, is just, I know everybody wants to get the pitchforks out for Zach Jones and wants Connor Mackey to play. Zach Jones has played 3 games over the course of a month and a half. Before we entirely write him off as being useless, done, not an NHL talent, you got to give him a little bit of time to get acclimated to playing again. I know we take for granted the mindset of always be ready. You got to get in when they call your number, you got to be ready for the opportunity. It's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to do it. It's a nice thing that high school coaches say to guys who are like the 12th guy on the bench, but it's another thing to go from sitting in a suit, sitting in a row with Larry Brooks and Molly Walker eating popcorn in the press box, to playing in a National Hockey League game. We can say all we want about, well, he's practicing. Why isn't he that ready? Practice will never be like a game. Especially considering his defensive partner hasn't had the greatest of starts. That's going to make his responsibilities feel even more daunting. They were not good against Minnesota, the Jones and Schneider pairing. They weren't. And frankly, I expect them to struggle a little bit more as Jones gets used to playing professional hockey again. When you are not a regular in the lineup, it's hard to get it going on and off like that. So before everybody's ready to pillar him out and beg for Connor Mackey, as somebody who watched a lot of the Flames last year, Connor Mackey, the difference between him and Zach Jones, negligible at best. We are not talking about real difference makers here when we're talking about 6th, 7th, 8th defensemen. The biggest thing is, again, just like we were talking about in regards to Chytil and moving the lineup around a little bit, minimize the damage, just survive.
One of the reasons for arguing for hot out of the gate, obviously, besides winning is always better than losing, is that presumably early in the season, at the start of a season, you are fully healthy. This is a team that has everybody in the lineup, that no one's out for a long period of time, or obviously with certain teams there's injuries that last throughout the summer and then the recoup process and all that. But for the Rangers specifically, they were a healthy team entering game 1 of the regular season. So the idea is that besides wanting to win all of the time anyway. You want to bank as many of these games as you can now, so that when injuries happen, because it's not an if, the Rangers have been pretty lucky with injuries over the course of the past couple of seasons. They haven't had that many injuries to top guys over the course of the last couple of years here. But now the reason why one of the biggest reasons why you want to win early with your full team is that when injuries actually do happen and you start either struggling a little bit or kind of just gasping for air as you wait for these guys to come back, is that cushion. You have it. So now you've won all those games, and now you have a team that's shorthanded. So now if you lose a couple of games, the sky isn't falling. It's okay. We have those games in the back of our back pockets that we can use as a cushion if we need to, because now Adam Fox isn't playing. Filip isn't playing. Igor Shesterkin has been out with soreness. I don't know if he's going to start the next game or not, but he's a little bit sore as well. These are the games that you need to win early, so that when bleep hits the fan, you have that little bit of a cushion of like, okay, if we lose, it's not as bad as it would have been if we had lost that earlier game when everybody was healthy. You are muted again, sir.
I was saying I know I'm muted. I was saying that I'm making a graphic for something for this. In regards to just the cushion survival, you're going to have to, and I know I've said this like 3 times, taper your expectations, be realistic, because when you get off to a great start like this, everybody starts thinking pie in the sky. In the cartoons where people walk by the house and they smell the fresh pie sitting on the window and they float over to the window. That was everybody for the first month of the season in regards to this Rangers team. Oh, I wasn't expecting this. Are we good? That's the kind of mindset that percolated throughout the fan base very quickly, because we all expected growing pains. We all expected struggle at 5-on-5 and to survive on the power play and the goaltending. And in actuality, the offense has been meh. The defense has been really good. The goaltending has been okay, and the power play has been, and the penalty kill have been really good. So the most exciting thing through those first 8-9 games was we're good. There's room to improve, and we know exactly how we're going to improve our style of play. That was encouraging. Now, this is cold. This is the cold hit of reality. This is waking up on a Monday morning when your alarm goes off and remembering, oh, that's right, we still have to play another 70-something hockey games before we can even start to really take the playoffs seriously. And we expect the Rangers to make the playoffs, even if they have a bad November without Fox and Chytil. I still don't expect that to really change their trajectory as far as postseason or not. But the one thing it can do, it can lower the ceiling a little bit. And I say that because we have seen, especially in the past, Ranger coaches do the stopgap solution to problems where this person's not playing well. Okay, instead of trying to raise the ceiling, let's try and raise the floor without a mindset of how that affects our ceiling. And that's how you get things like second line, Barclay Goodrow, Jimmy Vesey. It's how we're going to end up with, at least to start, in theory, first line Blake Wheeler this week. Coaches
what did he do to deserve that, by the way? Can you tell me? Because
he got a standing ovation in Winnipeg.
Dude, don't even get me started.
That is the one danger, is they play well, and it's the more of the smoke and mirrors playing well of years past where they keep winning, they probably shouldn't be winning, and then when Chytil comes back, oh well, Blake Wheeler, and we're winning games. I don't want to change the lineup, so we're gonna keep Blake Wheeler on the first line, and I don't want to break up Trocheck and Panarin because we've been winning there. So that's how you end up with Chytil, Cooley, Kakko as the third line a month from now if Chytil comes back and is ready to go. And that's another thing we should mention in regards to both Fox and Chytil. Whenever they do come back, they're gonna need at least a good 2 weeks to get back up to game speed. You can say all you want, well, be ready to go if the medical team says they're ready to play. As the Rangers very well prove all of the time, just because the medical team lets someone play does not mean they should be playing. The Rangers spent the first 38 games of last season with Jacob Trouba being a 35% goals for player. He had a week off at the All-Star break, came back, and was significantly better, even though he didn't practice basically the entire first half of the season because he was dealing with a nagging injury. So let's all try and keep things in perspective. That's kind of the overarching message when you're dealing with adversity. This is early in the season for this type of adversity. Usually this happens a little later on where you deal with the major injuries, but it doesn't seem the end of the world. 3 to 4 weeks, sprained knee, manageable. They can survive the next 3 to 4 weeks with Adam Fox not in the lineup. More than that, then okay, we have to start talking about, well, what are we going to do long term then?
Yeah, and the thing about his contract is that just because you put him on LTIR, as we've come to discover over the past couple of days by people pretending that this is true, is that it doesn't magically create $9.5 million of cap space. Like, that's not how the cap works. Just like, I understand that the thought process is, oh well, Tampa did it with Kucherov, so but it's like, no, dude. Just because Adam Fox has been placed on LTIR doesn't mean that like the Rangers magically can get whoever for a bajillion dollars and it's all fine. If Adam Fox sits out the entire regular season, I guess, but why would you ever want that to happen, right? Like, it's just because he's going to be on LTIR for a few weeks does not mean that the Rangers can suddenly acquire another number one defenseman and then just magically make that cap space back, all because he sat out for 3 weeks. That's not how the cap works. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it, and the league would be in shambles, and they would have to make a new CBA. Like, that's not how the cap works. So the Rangers just need to hold on. They're not going to get anybody that's going to replace Adam Fox or somebody that can even stopgap what Adam Fox does. All they have to do is just hang on to their seats and just hold on, because this is like, there's no savior that's going to come in and help them for 3 weeks and then just, sail off into the sunset once Adam Fox comes back. This is reality. This is not NHL 24, be a GM where you just make a bunch of moves, bring in somebody else, and then, here we go. Here's a brand new team. It's not how the NHL works and operates. So right now, your best defenseman is gone. Your second line center is gone. Your starting goaltender is dealing with soreness. They just have to hold on. Now, please hang on a little bit better than what you did against Minnesota. That was awful. That was painful to watch. They scored 3 goals, and then Minnesota, I think, they outchanced them by some ludicrous amount. After that, like, it wasn't even close. There was multiple shifts in the third period where the Wild held the puck in the Rangers zone for like 3-4 minutes at a time. Like, guys, your best defenseman's out, but like, someone's got to get the puck at some point, right? Like, it can't just be the Adam Fox show. Somebody else got to do it.
Off of that, 2 things. Number 1, yes, Adam Fox is by far their best puck mover. They're not in doubt at all. The one counterpoint to that is in a 3-1 game, and you typically see this in games with lopsided scores, you will see the underlying numbers look funky. You will see a team that wins a game 5-2 get outchanced like 50-37, and you go, well, they played really well. Why is that? It's because they're not willingly conceding, but they're encouraging the other team to shoot. And the Rangers did that to their detriment on Saturday. They were content with, okay, if Minnesota wants to take those crappy shots from the top of the circles, the wall, we can live with that. The issue was they did that for pretty much every single shift. And it's not that you can't get by playing defense like that. Teams do that all the time. It's that when you are consistently defending, the opportunity for something to go wrong happens. And that's really the key to this topic. Is it's not that you can't play more defense than offense and still be successful. It's just more difficult to play that way. And that's kind of the thing you and I like to harp on in regards to transition play and defense is the less defense you play, the less room for error, the more room for error you have because the other team has fewer opportunities. All it takes is one fluky bounce on a shot that has no velocity on it, and all of a sudden the other team has a goal. They get a little bit of juice back in their legs. They start thinking, okay, 3-1's a lot better than 3-0. And that's what happened. When you get out to a big lead early in a game, you have got to stomp out the other team. It's not enough to just try and win the game. It is, we're ending this game 7 or 8-0. That should be your goal when you're up 3-0 in the first period. It's great. They feel good about their defense, and their defense has been very good this year. Their team defense is one of the best in the league, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I pulled a few stats on that, but you got to give yourself a chance. And the more opportunities you give the other team, the more likely something goes wrong. That's really the key to understanding the Minnesota game, in my opinion.
They scored too many goals too early.
Yes, basically.
That's essentially what happened. They scored a bunch of goals in the first period. Like, that's it. We've won. We can just let them shoot as much as we want the rest of the game. The problem is that the Wild needed a win really badly. They've been playing poorly. Their goaltending hasn't been great. They were desperate for a win, and the Rangers, off of 6 straight wins, were like, "Oh look, we scored 3 goals. The game is over. All right, I'll see you tomorrow." It's like, no, like, it's not how the league. It's not how the NHL works. And they got dumpstered, and rightfully so. They scored 3 goals and acted like the game was over when there was still 40 minutes left to play, and that's just not like you can't let that happen. And the Wild smelled that. They smelled the blood in the water, and they pounced on it to their credit.
In terms of last week, the win against Carolina, that's a really good win. They did not play great in that game. You were down 2 guys. You lost your second line center and your best defenseman during the course of that game. You didn't play that great. The other team is very familiar with you. You play them often. You got it, real animosity between the teams based on the playoffs last year and just playing each other so frequently. To win that type of game shorthanded, that was a really good, I don't want to say like season defining win, but that's the first type of benchmark win they've had this season, where if something special happens later in the year, that's a game you point back to and say, the seeds of a good team were planted in that game against Carolina, where their best players gave them a chance to win. They got goals from Panarin and Zibanejad, and that was the difference. Those are the types of games where if something special happens, it starts there. We always talk about, well, you can't win the Stanley Cup in September, October, November, whatever. The seeds of
you can lose it though.
Yes, you can lose it.
Ask San Jose.
San Jose and the Stanley Cup. Maybe they can buy a ticket to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame and see it when they're in Toronto, because that's the closest they're going to get to it for quite a while. We'll talk about San Jose. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But continue.
Just last thing on this topic. You feel good about where everyone's at in regards to the fact that they're not playing great and they have room to improve. That's kind of that's the point I'm going to keep hammering home, is that they still haven't ironed out a lot of the problems. Like, I'm going to read some rate stats here for you in a minute that are just like horrendous. Like, they have stats that are like worse than the Sharks and the Blackhawks in terms of just creating offense. But because the defense has been so good, it doesn't particularly matter. And yeah, some of this is going to be a struggle without Adam Fox to tilt the ice, which is something else I want to talk about real quick. But at the very least, you see the opportunity that's in front of them. And that's why, even though things seem kind of bleak right now with the injuries to key players, you just got to hold on.
As we've talked about this over the course of seasons and throughout different topics. I would rather this happen now than in June. This overarching idea, that like these things will happen. It's not a matter of if. Injuries are a part of the sport, and issues like that are going to happen one way or the other. If Adam Fox is going to get injured and misses a month of time because he cannot skate because he has a bruise or a sprained knee, I would rather it happen now than happen in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. Like, it's just, you have to pick one or the other. You have to choose your battles because these things will happen. It's just a matter of when. So, like we talked about, all they have to do is just tread water and just try to keep banking as many points as they can. They didn't play well against Minnesota, but they still got a point, which is more than they probably deserve to get. Like especially because they only played one period. They played one of the 3.5 periods. The first 20 were really good. The second 20 was awful. The third 20 was awful. The overtime was one of the worst overtimes I think I've ever seen ever. The 3-on-3 overtime was just awful. It was painful. It was 5 minutes of each team taking turns getting the puck into the zone and then skating it out, and then getting the puck in the zone and then skating it out. That was the entire overtime. It was brutal to watch. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But yeah, and then the Wild won in a skills competition. Oh well. Rangers got a point out of that. The most important aspect for the Rangers right now is to find ways to continue accruing points, whether it be in overtime or wins or however. When you're missing your top guys, survival is the key here.
So I'm going to pull a few stats here from Natural Statrics. So these are at a glance. So these are the rate stats, meaning per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time to kind of give you a fair compromise because not everybody has played the same amount of 5-on-5 minutes. So they are 30th in scoring chances, 4 out of 60, 52.57. That tracks. The Rangers get to the offensive zone. They don't shoot a lot. That tracks. They are 15th in scoring chances against, which that kind of tracks. You feel like, okay, they're not getting killed as much as years past in terms of the other team shooting on them. Goals for 1.94 per 60, that's 26th. Goals against 1.82, that is 6th. That is really good. Even though they are still really not scoring a ton, they still have a positive goal for goals against ratio. That's positive. This is the key and something that we can flag and maybe is worth discussing. High danger chances for, they're 31st. High danger chances against, they're 23rd. That tells you that they are not generating dangerous offense, that they are creating volume offense. And that doesn't track because we know the Rangers don't shoot a ton in the offensive zone. So if they're going to have that volume-based approach to offense, that means they're going to have to shoot more, which also has the negative impact of reducing the average quality of scoring chance. So there's a conversation to be had there about quality versus quantity. And then expected goals for, they're 30th, expected goals against 14th. And then the buoys of all buoys, 7.5 shooting percentage, which is 19th, and then 92.89 save percentage, which is 10th. Those two will carry the Rangers through the regular season. You can cheese the regular season. Like, you know how you talk about the meta in battle royale games where you can cheese and take advantage of game imbalance. That's what the Rangers effectively do in the regular season. They get by on their shooting talent and their goaltending. And then when the playoffs come, their lack of 5-on-5 offense has been their undoing in the past. The hope is everybody gets healthy. They get back to generating offense at the volume they were the first few weeks of the season, and we go from there. But drop down, strong team defense, need more offense, special teams doing a lot of work. But the difference for me in my mind is that the team defense is actively good as opposed to years past where it was a dumpster fire for long stretches of time that's not just a comment on the players. It's also what the players were being told to do. It's great that you got 40 games out of Ben Harper last year. Him clearing the puck out of the zone 37 times on the alley-oop that barely grazes the scoreboard out of the defensive zone just so the forwards could change, but him and Schneider had to stay out there another 30 seconds. That's not a great play. That's not a high percentage. That's not an effective play. So as far as the rest of the way, get healthy, start creating more offense. That's really going to be the key here is how can they unlock some more offense, especially without Adam Fox, who's their cheat code. When Fox is on the ice, they generate more chances than the other team. When he isn't on the ice, they don't. And through the first 8-9 games of this year, for the first time in Fox's tenure, they were generating still a positive share of expected goals and scoring chances since Adam Fox got here. That was the first time when he wasn't on the ice they weren't a net negative in the scoring chance metrics. That's a really good indicator that, hey, maybe something good is here. But without Adam Fox, it's going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle to find offense, which is why you're probably going to see them attempt to ugly up some of these games over the next few weeks without Fox and without Chytil, where if the top two lines aren't out there, you're not going to see a whole lot because the priority is going to be avoiding conceding as opposed to creating.
Like we talked about, this is one of the biggest things that the Rangers have had issues with under Gallant, where the offense just kind of isn't there until they get to the power play. And some of the same issues have been here under Laviolette. It's going to take a while for them to kind of to really hash out those underlying metrics. I do feel like they're on a positive trajectory, at least with Adam Fox and Filip. We'll wait to see how badly the stats tank without those two guys. I mean, they're kind of important to the team. Nick, I don't know if you know that, but these are stats that I feel like they will improve over time, especially because of how detail-oriented Laviolette is or seems to be. I have the sense that, Laviolette sees these things happen on a game-to-game basis and is trying to find new ways to fix them. Or maybe I'm just giving him too much credit. I have no idea. It's still really early. They've only played 11 games together as a team, so we still have 70 games to go. There's a lot of time for the Rangers to kind of fix that, and I think that with the regime in place that I will try at the very least. I don't know how much Blake Wheeler on the first line will fix that, but maybe he does. Who knows? Like that's the goal is maybe it won't work, but what if it does, right? What if Blake Wheeler all of a sudden on the first line remembers how to skate fast again, and now the Rangers win every game after that? Like that's the dream. But for right now, without their best defenseman, without their second best center, just do whatever you have to do in order to make games close. And if you're going to win some of these games, great.
That's really the key, man. Survival and get there. I wrote down adversity is important. You need to have struggles during the course of your regular season if you're going to eventually win. And that sounds counterintuitive, and that sounds kind of like fortune cookie wisdom, where like how you have to be a veteran team to win in the playoffs, and you need experience, and you need size, and you need all the checklist of things that change every single time the hockey men convene on one of the talking head panels. Those are all things that, in theory, it makes sense. Oh, you need this, you need that. In my opinion, it does feel like you need to face some regular season adversity. It's part of the reason President's Trophy teams don't have a great track record of converting their regular season success into a Stanley Cup, is because when your regular season is easy, take the Bruins, for example, you haven't been knocked around really at all during the course of your regular season. Your most adversity is like losing one game in a row. That's really hard when you're down 2-1, 3-2 in a playoff series against a talented team to find that headspace, because you're in that headspace for the first time in that experience. And it's why you need to have moments like this. And no team wants to have good players injured. In an ideal world, every single team, everybody's healthy, everybody plays all 82 games. That's the ideal world. It'll never happen. Hockey's too violent.
That's NHL 24 with injuries turned off. It's just exactly. These things don't happen in reality.
They don't. And that the Rangers can, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for a Zach Jones. This is an opportunity for a Vinny Trocheck or a Bonino or a Jimmy Vesey, where, okay, we need you. Who's going to be the one to make a play? Who's going to answer the bell and step up? It can't just be Shesterkin. It can't just be Zibanejad, Panarin, Kreider. Someone else is going to have to step up in the next few weeks to fill that void. Maybe it's Trouba, who's been playing relatively well this season, especially in comparison to what he was last year. If they are going to run K'Andre and Trouba as the first pair, and they're going to push them to 25, 26 minutes a game, all situations, they're going to ask a lot of that pair. And through what I've seen so far, I'm not opposed to that because they are not getting killed. Last year, first half of the season, Trouba Miller was unplayable, and the coach refused to break them up because, well, he's my captain, and that's our best defensive defenseman, which, again, that is true. You also have to be able to read the situation, engage, well, this isn't working, I need to change something. So right now, they're going to lean on the defense, they're going to lean on the goaltender, but someone is going to have to fill this void from somewhere else in the lineup to make the next few weeks not seem dire, because there's a world where they lose 5 of the next 7 just because they're shorthanded, they can't score enough, whatever. They're going to need someone to really step up, because it's hard to win every game 2-1, 3-2.
And also their next couple of games here, they got Detroit, who has been surprising everybody right now, right? They're one of the best teams in the East. They're 7-4-1. And then on Thursday, they rematch against the Wild, a team that they just blew a 3-goal lead to. Oh, and by the way, on Sunday, they get to play Columbus, a team that beat them early on in the season. So these are 3 games that are important to every team involved. It's not like they're playing San Jose, who are genuinely the worst team in NHL history. I mean, I sat there and watched like a psychopath.
Why?
I watched because it's the same.
It's a Saturday night, Andrew.
Go
walk the streets.
I work Sunday morning, Nick. Where am I going? I work Saturday morning and I work Sunday morning. Where am I going?
Scroll TikTok. Do something more predictable.
Listen, I have the game on. It's the same thing. Like when there's an accident on the freeway and everybody stops to survey the damage. It's the same concept of like, how bad could this possibly be? And then you turn the game on, and it is even worse than you possibly thought. I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks were bad and they have been bad. At least they're like trying to do things. The Phoenix Coyotes, not Phoenix, the Arizona Coyotes have been relatively bad, but they've been pretty okay. There have been historically bad teams in the NHL that we have watched and seen growing up, but I've never seen anything quite like this. This is they first of all, I think they're like the fourth team or fifth team in NHL history to give up 10 goals in back-to-back games. And it's not as like it's one thing if the other team has 23 shots and 10 of those go in off of like 8 people in front of the net, and it's just one of those games. The Sharks look like they don't care at all. This is heinously bad. There have been so many bad teams. I've been on the planet for almost 27 years now. I have seen a lot of bad teams in my day. In my time, I have never seen anything as brutal as this. I feel genuinely so bad for Sharks fans, especially the ones. Those, by the way, those 10 goal losses, both been at home. People gave their money, their hard-earned money,
give their money back,
and their evenings. These fans give up their time and their money to show up to an arena only to watch their favorite team care not at all as the other team skates circles around them and drops 10 on their heads in back-to-back games. This is Bettman said famously that teams don't tank. Let me tell you something, Gary. I might just have an example here for you of maybe one of the teams that I don't know if listened to what you had to say pertaining tanking.
So the difference is those guys are in theory attempting to win a professional hockey game. It's not like they dress 18 AHL players. They dress like 10 AHL players, but they are not actively trying to lose. They assembled the worst roster possible with the goal of losing. I think, first of all, it's hilarious they're doing it the year after a really good draft. Last year's draft, significantly better than this year's draft. Like, any of Cooley, Fantilli, Leo Carlson, any of those guys would be number 1 overall this year, no questions asked. I don't know who the clear-cut first overall prospect is in this year's class yet because it's too early. We haven't even hit World Juniors yet. Number 2.
Which, by the way, signifies no generational talent. Because we heard about...
Well, no, we overuse generational talent.
I mean,
that's the other issue.
Okay,
not everybody's
let's say an overhyped name to start. Like I was hearing about McDavid for years prior to the draft. I was hearing about Lafreniere way before the draft. I was hearing about we were hearing about Crosby and Ovechkin for way before the draft. It's November. I've seen names here and there, but I haven't seen this large push for one specific name. Maybe I've missed it. Maybe I'm just not part of those circles. But it's November, and I haven't seen this. This is the guy. Don't even bother if you're second overall, because this is the guy that's going to lead your team to a Stanley Cup. I haven't seen a name like that yet, which signifies to me that we don't have a Connor McDavid in this draft. Which, yes, to your point, generational talent means once in a generation. You can't. Not every player can't be a generational talent. But the Sharks. The thing about the Sharks too, real quick, is that at least last year with Erik Karlsson on the team, the Sharks fans had a reason to go. At least the Sharks were losing a bunch of games, but at least Karlsson was fun to watch. The problem is that Mike Greer got an Arby's coupon for him, so now the Sharks fans genuinely have no reason to come. There's nobody to watch. Tomas Hertl is their best player. The problem is that he can't be traded because he has this massive contract that nobody wants. The best teams don't have the cap for him to get him at the deadline unless the Sharks retain 50% and do some weird cap gymnastics to make it happen. And if you're a bad team, well, why would you go get Tomas Hertl? Because he doesn't move the needle for you right away. So he's stuck in no man's land. He signed that massive contract. He got the bag, sure. Props to him. Get your bag, King. But he's stuck in San Jose. And everybody else, it's a tough world out there in San Jose. I'll tell you that right now.
I, for one, would like to give credit to world-renowned culture builder David Quinn, who has seen 2 different organizations quit under him in a 3-year period, and somehow still has people defending him on the internet based on the fact he made one national title game with the best college hockey player of the last 30 years and didn't even win the damn game. This is a person who had Jack Eichel, Charlie McAvoy, and Clayton Keller and didn't win a national championship. In college hockey, where if you have the best player, more often than not, you win because of how little impactful players there are at the NCAA level for the most part. That's not to say college hockey doesn't have good products, but for the most part, if you have the best player, you win at that level because there just are not that many impactful players. I, for one, I said it the day they fired him. If David Quinn ever wins anything at any level, I will stop doing sports media for a living. I think I'm pretty safe, is what I'll say. I'm going to go and pull that clip of me saying, well, if David Quinn ever wins anything at the NHL level, I'll retire from sports media at whatever age I'm at. I feel like I'm pretty safe from David Quinn winning anything as an NHL head coach, other than first coach fired prop bets, if any sportsbook actually offers that.
Well, the thing about that is that Edmonton might soon have an opening, so he might have himself a third role in the NHL real quick here.
Oh,
either
God,
him or Gerard Gallant.
Subject Connor McDavid to him.
Gerard Gallant or David Quinn.
Gallant in Edmonton would be funny because he would actually get reamed for not having tactics. He would actually get held accountable because TSN would be like, "Did the Oilers practice? We sent blah 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 to the Oilers facility today, where Connor McDavid gently skated around some cones for 7 minutes before Gerard Gallant dismissed the team." Back to you in the studio. That is what would happen.
That is what would happen. 100%.
Real quick before we wrap up, we're in a weird spot now where the schedule is not meeting our demand for hockey, and like, it's a good thing it's working to the Rangers' benefit because they're dinged up right now. But God, this is annoying playing 3 games a week, and we're playing Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. Please give me hockey at a reasonable pace here. Why are we playing 5 games in 8 days in March, and then we're playing 3 games in 10 days in November? How does that make sense?
It doesn't. I mean, I know that the NHL, we talked about this before, where every team is always mad at the schedule makers always, and it is up to the schedule makers' job to try to mitigate that anger as best as they can every year, and nobody is ever happy ever, despite all of the changes that they make at all times. Like, and also, not only they have to deal with the teams, also the broadcast partners, and and national media, and also when arenas are available, because a lot of arenas have other sports teams or concerts or events. Like, it is, making a schedule for a pro league is not an easy feat. But I will say to your point, what is with these bye weeks? Why? That's kind of silly to me. Also, why have it in November? That doesn't make any sense to me either. If you're going to incorporate bye weeks, and I understand that, you have to stagnate these things. You can't just make everyone go on a bye week at the same time, because then you won't have hockey
we could
for a
actually
week.
send players to the Olympics, which we actually want, but the NHL won't do that.
Listen. Now you're talking crazy, Nick. You can't do these things, because that you know what that does? That disrupts the NHL, Nick. You can't do that.
I, for one, also, I'm going to pat myself on the back here for giving it till, I think I said 20 games would be the benchmark where Ryan Reeves became fully insufferable in Toronto. He did it in 10. World class. Oh, you're going to let me talk into a microphone? Oh, let me do it. I'll even take my shirt off so I look cool while I do it.
It's hilarious. It is so funny that he got up on that mic and said, yeah, we're next time Brad Marchand does that, we're gonna make him pay. Brother, you're there to make sure that doesn't happen. But you're there, and it happened. And now you're talking into a microphone as opposed to dealing with Brad Marchand? Sir, what is happening? It's almost like we discussed that having Ryan Reeves on your team is not a deterrent, and he's also bad at hockey. So why give him a 3-year contract? It's almost as if everybody, except for Brad Trey living up in Toronto, figured that out and didn't give him a 3-year contract. But yet here we are, and now Toronto's in this mess. Oh, gee, what a surprise.
I have a comparison for you that you'll probably like. You know how The idea of deterrence, like mutually assured destruction, nuclear war, that kind of thing. You're familiar with the
Yeah.
concept?
I
So,
listen to Megadeth. I've heard the words mutually assured destruction a lot of times.
so yeah, you're familiar with this concept. The idea
Yes.
that you won't go to nuclear war with somebody because they'll destroy you as well.
Yeah.
The Leafs are like North Korea with nuclear war with Ryan Reeves, where they have one missile and they swear to God they're not afraid to use it. That's what Ryan Reeves on the Toronto Maple Leafs is. North Korea's one nuclear weapon, where we will use it. Do not test us. Okay, send Ryan Reeves out there, have him get a game misconduct for trying to put someone's skull through the ice, get him suspended for 4 games, and lose the game. Great. Teams want you to put Ryan Reeves on the ice. What is it? 7-0 the Leafs have been outscored when he's on the ice this year.
Yep.
Teams want you to play him. That is how ineffective he is at both his job as being a deterrent and the hockey player. It's funny. The Leafs, the Oilers, the Flames, pretty much the only Canadian team that has good energy right now is the Canucks. Like even the Senators, who aren't off to a bad start, they had to fire their GM because of the Dadonov paperwork thing. Like
and Kachuk was like, yeah, these fans are just giving us negative energy all the time. It sucks.
Real quick on booing. I talk about this all the time. That is the only way fans can convey their frustration, discomfort.
Not jersey throwing.
I cannot sit in on the meetings. Like I was talking about this with Yankee fans over the summer, and they're like, well, we're going to do a protest. Don't buy tickets to the game. Protest outside of the stadium. You giving them your money doesn't send a message. If you want to tell your team this is unacceptable, convince people to stop showing up or convince people to organize outside of the game. Going into the game and booing, that is one way to convey. Brady Tkachuk is very lucky that it's, the Senators are not exactly, they're not the Leafs, they're not the Oilers. They don't have as ravenous, as passionate of a fan base. If like Austin Matthews said that, like after they lost the playoff series, he would have to move and they would have had to trade him.
Here's the thing. If you don't want to be booed as a pro hockey player,
play better.
How about you play better? Because the fans want you to do well. And if you perform below expectations, they're going to make you hear about it. It's almost as if, hey, if you played better, they wouldn't be booing you. But that's, I'm not
here nor there.
I plead the fifth on that one.
All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Liberty Blue Podcast. We will be back next week. We're available on all the major podcasting platforms, YouTube as well. 3 games this week. Try and go 2-1-0, 2-0-1, whatever configuration of that you like.
I'll even take 1-1-1 right now.
That would work right now. Yeah.
For in the meanwhile, as the best skater on your team is out and the second best center on your team is out, 1-1-1, it like doesn't sound great. Doesn't sound magical or mystical or whatever. Just get as many points as you can. Just keep accruing them, and going 3-0 every week without 2 of your best players is very difficult. Obviously, 1-1 doesn't sound pretty, but it gets the job done as a stopgap.
It pays the bills. That's all you need. A good 1-1 pay the bills week. We'll be back next week. We'll talk to you then. Knock on wood, no more injuries. We'll see you guys then.
Hopefully. Later.